Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
For the sun to be what it is today has taken billions of years, step at a time, little by little, little by little, little by little. And then the process of creation has come. I explained this too before, maybe you understand it. To create a process of, let's say, living in the body of them, in what do you call it, a fetus.
Yeah.
The brain, the body of, or what they call the amalgamation of the cells, don't go and process it there. They create a condition that condition allows any fields which fits into the liver, which decided by the liver of the mother, is manifested in it. And then that allows it to grow because it attracts fields. It's the same in the universe. To wait for the fields to come, the womb of the galaxy creates a condition that this place can accommodate something. And there is a soul for it, which, or a field energy which is available to that strength and fill in the wish within the process. Very few, if any, stars or systems ever been created by the interaction of the fields on their own. In a way, you're the seed, they drop you in, and then it grows, you get a plant. The soul of the man is that seed. And they give him the strength in a given position in the universe, then it nourishes because he can absorb. Once you germinate the first seed, the rest is normal. And that seed comes grown in the village of the earth, in the, what do you call it, global warming structure of the soul. Last week, I spoke about what happened in last year with the planet Earth. How we connected directly to the sun for a fraction of time. Where, even though we had an atmospheric connection, but we lost the field strength of, or the strength hardly connected to the sun. We had the direct line. If you look at environmental changes since last April, you understand the change, the fields which are received, elevation of the body physical structure and the soul of this planet has changed. That continuously shielding of the atmosphere wasn't there, it was gone. And in that time, massive energy rise. That energy, which is absorbed by the body partially and partially goes to the center of the planet, now is showing itself in disaster conditions and the change of the weather. Even now we see again new structure setting. They keep on talking about global warming, but the changes in the physical structure of the earth and start marking it in a drastic way is, since last May, is because of this surge of energy which has been received by inner physical structure of the planet.
Wow.
And I said we have to wait and see. Now we see the floods, we see other things.
So the depletion of crude oil, that has contributed to these disasters because it's not shielding the fields from...
Crude oil will never diminish on this planet. Read the paper I've written time ago. As long as we have the oceans, as long as we have the moisture and the salt moisture, as long as we have what we call the salt. You know what the salt means in the world of chemistry? Is the connection of the iron metal to a non-metal, which that connect that's how the salts are created, what we call a salt. As long as there are metals in the ocean, there are metals in the atmosphere, and as long as we have non-metallic, calcium, whatever, in the oceans of the planet, and we have the zinc and the copper, are the what we call the talk that the oil will finish is a fallacy.
Yeah, no, I know it will finish. But it acts as a shield, doesn't it?
No, it gets absorbed in the ocean and it goes deep in. It is the field absorption.
Is the oil is the oil for the Earth similar to our brain matter for the brain, where it kind of diffuses the rays as we absorb them?
No, it's selective job. You see, you have certain fields which matches with the zinc in the ocean. You have certain fields which matches with the copper in the ocean. If the field strength and the energy matches with the iron, you create the first cycle of life, which can have what we call blood circulation. Yeah, and we see this. We see that in the east of Atlantic, and we see it in North China Sea. These are the two bedrocks of life on this planet, which is iron-based.
Really?
So it's very simple. We have huge, I've explained this in other teachings years ago, the Central Sahara or desert in Central Africa, with the annual winds which blows the iron dust over Congo and into the Atlantic, and with the right combination of the salinity of the Atlantic, creates that what you do in your boxes, in your what do you call it, CO2 production boxes and the rest of it. They create instant condition of the protein, then starts with connection to the calcium in the ocean, the cycle of life. We have the same thing in North China Sea because we have a mountain range which is full with iron. In annual corrosion, this iron gets into the ocean and leads to the creation. That's why we have a huge life presence in east coast of Africa, and this leads to the next generation of what we call the weather disturbances and hurricanes and the rest of it, which is partly connected to this. And if you understand this, then you understand there is never ever, as long as the deserts and North China Sea iron wall exists, there shall never be shortage of oil on this planet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 566th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, November 28th, 2024. This is a broadcast of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Education Department and part of the Public Teachings in English. My name's Rick Crammond, and I'll be host once again in this endless series of wonderful workshops. And once again, we have the pleasure of having Mr. Mehran Keshe as our presenter and teacher here today. And I believe he is ready to go with some unknown topic that I'm certainly not aware of. But please go ahead, Mr. Keshe, with your teaching for today.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good day to you. As usual, wherever and whenever you listen to this series of knowledge seekers from Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute. I do apologize today. I have a bit of a blocked some parts that the voice might be a bit restricted. We welcome you back to the Keshe Foundation, as I said, teaching of the Spaceship Institute. Today's teaching is on the back of the teachings of past few weeks. And now we have become aware of the work of the universe, the way the universe is structured, and the way this universe moves. Every particle, every being, even the skin of the man, which is solid, is a dynamic, and cells within it are continuously in motion. Let's learn the objects in the space we look at. Where does the essence of the motion comes in the dimension of the universe? As we spoke before, the origin of the whole structure is a magnetic field. We know, we call it a fundamental particle, as fundamental plasma. The other name for this fundamental plasma, which has led to the creation of this universe, we call it the God. And on the other hand, there is no difference. We are within a sphere that magnetic fields are embedded in it, and they interact, they expand. And it has a dimension, collection, dimension, restriction. To what extent this universe of ours will extend, it depends on what pressures and other universes which allows it to grow into, in the space-time of the universe, allow it to. But what happened? How come we start with a single or combination of the magnetic field, and this leads to creation of such a structure as a universe with all these planets, with all these, with all life? In fact, this process is very simple. But the life on this planet and the life in the universe as a whole is very much restricted by the process of the creation of the fields, interaction of the fields, and in a way the whole process, where did it start? How come from one field, one ray, we have such a combination of the structures, man, planetary system, complicated the structures of universe? If one look at the whole structure, if one understand the process of the creation, one will come to see it's so simple. It actually is one of the simplest things. As long as you have a field, and this field is in motion, it does not matter how it evolves, what space it has, somebody crosses these lines. And you just need to give it one dimension and direction. As you see on the drawing. But to you, this is a line. Follow this in a different way. If you look at it this way, for example, on this line, you see that the line is going away from the center where it started. But in this way, it's coming back to it. But what is interesting is this point. What is interesting is this point, and many like this. And this gives us understanding of the world of creation, because when the field interacts with another field, residual creates a plasma, even though it's of the same. And this plasma, depending on its position, will have the same position, interacting within itself in the same manner as a bigger structure. So one can see how, like galaxies and different life started. And as this continuous field in the center exists and feeds, this leads to creation of what we call life. Life in a way of residual leftovers. If we look at this and change the center of the universe, the creator of the whole lot, to a sun, if you look, it's the same structure again. If we just change the color, we see repetition of the same. Which means, if I change the center of the universe to a sun, again, these fields of the sun, within the environment it has in the galaxy, creates the same kind of motion. An interaction of these fields, somewhere at the end of the line, leads to plasmas. The only thing the scientists never understood, and the world of science never understood, was a simple fact. And this simple fact is that when two magnetic fields interact, they don't need physically to touch each other. They come near each other because they have a dimension. In this process, does not matter which way they are moving and which way they came, they create residual fields, which these residual fields of them crossing each other creates a plasma. And in a way, if you look at it, a plasma at the point of intersection is that patch, which is a collection and collective collection of whatever is made by interaction of the two fields. Once we understand this, then understanding of how universes, how everything else, how galaxies, how cell in the body of the man, how your kidney is positioned, is created. There is no energy in a way in the womb of the mother, except in a way of what feels that body, that womb creates, that womb becomes the limitation of the interaction of the fields, which later on becomes the fetus. And then in field interaction with outside, which the womb of the mother has dictated, leads to creation, manifestation of the man with 2 legs, 2 arms, and the rest of it. Once the world of science understand this in much deeper way, we see in a way galaxies have the same structure. We are in such a hurry in the world of the science of man, like a bull in a china shop, that we don't stand still to look, to understand. And that is very simple. If you look at the body of the man, with his arms and with his body, with the position of his kidneys, with the eyes and with whatever else, once the world of science understands what this means in the structure of life, you will see the same thing in the structure of the galaxies. Which means we come to see what we call the position of holding fields within the galaxy, or position of observing what other things is happening by field interaction, a position of storing materials as like a liver, and how to digest the energies which come from the universe and it goes through it. And then you compare this, you parallel this with the other galaxies, and you say, okay, this set of galaxies in this part of the universe behave like what we call the kidney of the universe. Then we see the bigger structure. Then we understand the function of totality. In a way, an energy in a package arrived in certain position in Unicos, which in that energy, which is a magnetic field in motion, led to dimensional motion of this field, which then, in a way, by absorbing energy from the Unicos, created the life of what we call our universe. Isn't this the same as what we do in the womb of the mother? We introduce a seed, and the mother puts a bit into it, and the whole cycle of life starts. Here, we are in the womb of the mother. Here, we are in the womb of Unicos. There is no difference. Interaction of the fields in the way they are targeted leads to creation of the liver, kidney, and the rest, and it's the same with the universe. The reason I brought this subject up is that this topic opens another dimension to understand. If this universe seeded from the beginning in the center, has its own dimension and direction, and is growing. As the scientists tell us, it's expanding. It has to have a place to be fed into fields, like the umbilical cord of the mother, or the energy within the placenta, or the energy within the liquid of the field of the womb of the mother, and has a dimension to go. Continuously receives energy and gives energy. And if you understand this and find out in the future science of man which way their fields come in and they go, we can jump into universe. And the same way come back into our universe. This is what we do every day through the dimension of the soul of the man, the energy within the center of the man does the same trip. No difference whatsoever. There is nothing special about man which man would like to make it. Then this leads to another step. This leads to another dimension of the understanding. This leads to the totality of the life of the man and how these fields come. Then, if we literally look back at what we call original picture, then we understand how galaxies are created in given position, and how the stars created in certain position within a galaxy, and how within the stars planetary system started, and understanding the planetary system, how life on Earth created. The totality of the knowledge is understanding the interaction, interception of plasmatic fields. Which way they come, which way they go, how do they arrive, and how do they go? And if we expand this, we come to a very simple understanding. Life that starts with a single ray. Then, in confinement of the environment of itself, it makes motions, it makes directional motion. And in the interaction of the motion, maybe comes to proximity and others, and in that process, in the world of the man today, this is what we call hydrogen. In interacting, having common denominator, and understanding the process, this, with the limitation of the field strength, gives us at this point what we call carbon-14. And in the dimension of the motion of so many of these interactions and fields, it gives the cell a volume, which we call carbon-60. So, we understand how to start with a fundamental element, energy, and through its interaction to create whole cycle of life. This is a gift of knowledge. This is a gift of understanding the process of creation. It's not that there is 7 or 6 or 2 or 1 electron and proton. Man looks at it as a matter state in the dimension of the field of creation. We look at as energy level. This energy, it creates condition of hydrogen. This energy creates condition of carbon-14. If you confine it within another dimension of fields, you call it the carbon-12 in the womb of the mother, which leads to creation of life. Fields within the fields. And if you give it a full dimensional connection, the carbon-60, which is the volume of this universe, size, and the body of the man is called the skin of the man. There is no difference. This is where carbon-60 confines the size of the planetary system or the universe or the body of the man or everything else. So if we understand that the first field, fundamental energy, in interaction and dimension with its own, creates a line of communication and connection that the fields separate, leads to what we call the communication separation line, what we call carbon-14, and in a dimension of the motion that stays within a certain structure, then we see what we call the carbon-60 or the volume. And you understand everything goes back from interaction and what we call dimensional fixture of the same ray. Now we understand the process of creation. Now we understand the process of understanding of creation. And then you have to bring into play is that fundamental plasma as a single plasma and in interaction with itself leading to creation of the communication or separation, but interaction of carbon-14, and then understanding the totality in the process of the creation of everything else which man needs to have to be able to create the life of the man and life of another things in the universe. But fundamentally, this process is the cornerstone of the understanding of the creation. And how you bring this carbon-14 and how you bring the carbon-12 on a human side to any name you want to give it, but looking at it as a plasma, and the interaction back with itself leads to creation of the copper, zinc, and every other element. But we have been led by scientists of the man to understand only the matter side, but we never looked at his energy side. This is why it's been said, once man understands this, man will be able to do everything which he could ever imagine impossible, because you know the source. You become the creator, you become the decider, you become the, what I call, fundamental decision maker in how this energy manifests itself, interacts by itself, and the rest. In the past times, I tried to explain this. If you go back to the teachings of past few weeks, tried very clearly to explain this in a very fundamental way, that you understand this process, and once you understand the interaction of the fields by itself leads to line of connection, separation, and communication, which in that process, with the interaction of itself, leads to dimension of the physicality, or energy, which leads to dimension of manifestation and detection. Where does this come handy? Why we talk about it this way? You travel in a space, you come across an energy, it has no dimension, has no visualization. To you is nothing, but you're aware of it. How can you make this detectable, maybe visible, but being aware of another life? Where does this connection comes, and what strength, and what line of communication comes to it to give it physicality? In a way, this is important for you, for transportation too. How do you change the field strength that, like what I call night vision glasses, you be able to see the physicality is not just something in the dark. Man has to be able to understand this process of the connection between the essence, the source, and the line of communication or connection between the two. Then you can develop technologies, even sensors, which does not need technology, within the structure of the soul of the man, within the structure of physicality of the man, that whatever you see, you can give it a dimension of visualization, detection. Become like the blind man who touches a thing and says, this is a fruit, this is watermelon. And because he knows the taste of it, what it could be, when he opens it, even so he's blind, he knows what to taste. Man, knowledge has to get to that point that when it comes to a field in the universe at any point, does not need to eat it, does not need to kill it, does not need to do anything except respect and honor its existence by detecting it, and not just go through it like a bullet because I didn't know it's not there. It's like you driving down the road, a child comes across you and you just hit it and you go, sorry, I didn't see the child. This is not doable in the universe. So we have to build senses, we have to understand systems that can recognize the totality of every energy within the universe. You are not unfamiliar with this. You are very well familiar with this. You do it every single day in your life. The grandma died 20, 30, 40 years ago. And last night, you had a dream about the grandma. She has no physicality, but you know this energy is the energy of the grandma. When it comes back to your brain, this energy is transferred to figure the color of the eye and the clothing of the grandma. So what we teach is not something drastically what you don't know. What it is, you never understood the process. In the space, we do not carry the brain, we do not carry the connection with the brain that one can decipher what this object is. But we have the fields, energies within the soul of the man who can do that conversion. In a way, if you understand it in a very silly way, as I could put it, is you never thought about it. But if you understood what I just said above, you go and see the grandma. But the strangest thing is, you see yourself too. You have dinner with the grandma and you enjoy the apple she gives you, the cuddle she gives you, but, excuse me, your physicality is still here. So man, in a dimension of his own brain, is aware of his own energy. This is what is interesting. This is what you as knowledge seekers and humanity have not ever understood, because we never aware of the soul as an energy, as a plasma field which exists within the structure of our lives. Even our own soul recognizes the division of itself, that you become sitting with the grandma at a table somewhere. Grandma is in the dimension of field. She died years ago. How come you recognize yourself? This goes back again. You become the hedge and the dimension of the fields become the carbon 60, and this is the carbon 40. Just stand still and for a second think, how do I recognize myself sitting with the grandma? Even my physical being is aware of my energy, which we call the soul of the man, and his transmutation. For you knowledge seekers, the only thing which is left is to understand how, if you could manifest yourself at this point in physical condition. But you're in the middle of a space, I appear, I just see energy. This energy doesn't exist, I can't see it. But in fact, it's the grandma's energy. We know we have all the sciences of it. We have all the technologies of it within the structure of our brain, within the structure of our skull, within the structure of our physicality. It just, for us, is needed to understand the totality. How come you go somewhere and you see yourself doing something, you physically do it, you move, you drive, you eat, but you're still in bed asleep? Or you're given the driving seat to the energy side, leaving the physicality behind. The children of Mitra have this benefit that they can make the energy of physicality as part of the energy of the soul. Instantaneous. Because to them physicality came second, as they were created from the energy of the soul. In this process, many of you will be baffled. Many of you will understand more about the process of the technology, understanding the science of the creation in a dimension of the soul of the man, in a dimension of energy of the man. And then once you do this, you come to understand life, existence of life is much deeper than we thought. It's not just by getting up, eating and walking. It comes from the essence of understanding oneself, energy transformation, energy transmutation. And then the rest is mechanical. I'm sure you see, you feel the energy of the grandmother, you recognize it, but the grandmother does not exist, does not walk in the space, in its physical condition, as you used to go to her house and used to cook for you and used to cuddle you and you used to sit on the same table and eat with her. There are no table and chairs, but the emotion of understanding, conversion of the energy fields is what you convert in your brain. What is interesting, which comes out many times, and it must have happened to every single one of you. You went to see the grandmother, she made you the most delicious food you like, she gave you the fruit you like, you ate so much as grandma, I'm so full I can't. You come back to the dimension of physicality and you're starving. Now you understand how man has denied what has been given to him through the process of understanding the energy field of itself. Just think 1 second. How can I be with the grandmother? Don't know where she is. How come you find it so fast? And how come The mother shouts at you, get up, it's time to go to work, and say, goodbye, grandma, I have to go, mom is calling me. You come back in the dimension of physicality and carry on with life. Mom, I had a dream of the grandma. I was having food with grandma. It was so delicious. Are you hungry? Yes, I'm starving. Why don't we carry the energy from one to another? Why don't we understand the dimension of the other? This is where the game starts. Understanding to become the passengers of the universe in how you can travel the dimensions of the existence, the totality of life in the universe. The most important part for you as knowledge seekers is this: connection and creation. Book number 1 to book number 2 and the book number 3, where this is your book number 3, this is your book number 2, and this is your book number 1 in the dimension of the energy, and in the dimension of physicality, this is your 3, 2, 1. If you manage to connect the line of dimension of the communication, transportation, transmutation, then you can connect, manifest at any time, anywhere in the universe. This is the secret of what we call the promised promise, which means you go from the matter to energy, and from energy to dimension of the anything you like and other matter, or you start from the energy to communication, you become the matter. Where starting from the energy is the creator and the matter is you. And if you understand this, and you can convert your energies to direct transmutation of the fields, go through the process, you reach the creator. You become part. From creation to creator, and from creator to creation, there is no line of difference. It's just the lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. I hope you understood this clearly, because in the coming time, and as we started last week in the sessions of the Friday, many of you will receive the fruit as the energy. You transmuted it and you tasted it in the dimension of physicality of the man. We provided the energy of the fruit. You converted it to the taste, emotion, and the fruit. This is same part of the same structure. And if you understand this in a deeper way, in a much, much deeper way, where we could dictate or decide what fruit, and many of you who write back to us what I tasted, that material which you tasted has been on the table of the headphones, which you tapped into the energy from the source in the central system. Which means we can now on dictate what we would like you to have, that you taste it and you feel it. Knowledge seekers who joined us in the last session will receive a list of what was the content of the materials which they were given. Then they can checklist what they received, what they tasted, and how they have started transferring energy from the soul, which comes through the headphones, to the physicality of the taste and energy. This was the first process of last week, which we have started, because this then explains to you in a further way how we open channels to Palestine. One soul as a satellite feeds the rest in the dimension of connection. We do not need millions and millions of resources. We need one source to feed millions. It's the way the Creator is. The love of Creator is one in the center, and it feeds the whole of the universe, and it's instantaneous. And then you understand the knowledge of creation. We give you the fields through line of communication. We feed the physicality. Many of you knowledge seekers who joined last week, by next session in December, hopefully we'll have your food containers, which some of the knowledge seekers have received it. And then you see what you feel, how you feel, what you taste, and how much of it, without digesting the food, will absorb through the, what we call the system. Then, do we need to kill? And do we need to do what man has done, destroy to survive, where we become all survivors without destruction? And when you get to that point, it will bring a new emotion to man, which the killing does not exist, because killing comes to survive, to show superiority, where you're superior and you have no starvation for it. This is the line where the peace will come. This is the line where man will start changing. And you knowledge seekers who joined us are the first step in that structure. You have created the first dimension. And it'll be interesting to know how you will change and make manifestation of. What will be interesting is when you go to space, you receive energy, but you see the shape of an apple, taste the apple, chew the apple, and get the energy of the apple. But in your life, you have never seen an apple, because you are a child of universe. You've never been on earth. You never had contact with no apple trees, and you've never seen it in your life. The process of understanding the work of the creation is fundamental to all of those who want to become the passengers of the universe, to transmute. Recognition of what I see as me in the dimension of the energy, while I know my physicality still here. Now you understand. The way you went to see the grandma, and you sat with the grandma, you ate the grandma, you showed the grandma, look at my new clothes, you've done half of the transmutation. But because the grandma hasn't got any more physical dimension as you knew it, because the physical body is buried 6 foot under, you recognize the energy. But why didn't you feel the taste of the food in the dimension of physicality? You didn't feed yourself through the soul, that your physicality gets fed. And when the mother wakes you up, would you like breakfast? Yes, I'm hungry, please. But you already had a feast. You live like a man with 2 wives, going to the new house and saying, no, I didn't have anything, because otherwise this one will be upset. This is what we have missed in the line of communication. How, in this process, we bring in fields from dimension of the universe that embraces this, that this become that plasma which moves. This is the part which is missing in your line of the dream to dimension of physicality. In this process where you dreamt about the grandma, you did not do this. So you stayed in the dimension of energy. But, sorry, grandpa is alive, you are in London, and grandpa is in New York. You cannot do that with grandpa. You want to fly, and you actually get there physically to feed with the grandpa. You learn half of the pack. You did not learn the totality of the knowledge, because eating with a grandpa in New York in dimension of physicality and having a beautiful lunch with grandma somewhere in a space is exactly the same. It's just you who have not recognized the power which is within you. The energy field dimension which is within you. And this is part of the process of the teaching of the Keshe Foundation. To, in a way, open your eyes to a new dimension. I tell you what this dimension is. If you go back to all the teachings over past years, I always told you that you eat 20% of your food in dimension of physicality, and 80% comes from your environment. In a way, you put the seed inside you, and then it attracts the energy to feed you for whatever else you need at that energy level. The only thing which you need to learn is how to connect your central energy fields, what you call your soul, to tap into these. Because these, in certain way, connect to the grandmother on the energy side and connect to the grandfather on the physical side. Your line of feeding is what I explained, like the galaxies, which way it comes in, which way it goes out, and it can jump into another universe or come into your universe. That universe is you. There's no difference. And to what extent you convert, you embrace in totality, or you embrace in fraction, which is your soul, and you dream on, or you can expand. This is what I said from the beginning of the teachings years ago. If you expand your soul, then the soul will embrace, cocoons the physicality, then you can have a dinner with grandma in the dimension of energy, or transfer this when it comes to inertia of the earth, have lunch with grandpa in New York. All this, how to tap into this energy, how to receive it, goes back to one fundamental principle. And fortunately, I have given you that source of energy years ago, because it's a field interaction. Because in it, you have enough to live with it. The maglev system is that system. energy in the dimension of the all levels. And if you understood this process, then you understand if you design your maglev system in a specific way that become the soul of your feeding, not just making electricity to budget your food or your life. And if you understood this, one connects to the soul. One connects to the line of communication, and one connects to the physicality of the man. In creating energy in these different levels, you dictate, you transmute, or you transport. In a way, a maglev system which you've been given, and many of you made, and you look for 30% reduction in electricity, is the key to your understanding of the life and creation in the universe, and your connection with the universe. In the life of physicality, you bought yourself a car, or a bicycle, or a donkey with 4 legs. In a dimensional field of the universe, I gave you the maglev system, where if you understand how to set it up, will give you everything you need. But you need to understand, and don't look at the physicality of it, look at the energy of it. This is the secret. And I hope, as knowledge seekers, you understand now the gift you've been given as a maglev. And you went for the crumbs. In so many ways, every time you bring in position and position, again, you will stack it up as a maglev system. You make it up as a star formation. You create a field which manifests itself. That field, if corrected and connected, will lead to interaction of the field of the 4th manifestation of the man, or the creator. You remember those fields which cross from the source? Now, through the structure of fixing it, we dictate the position of the interaction. The star, the soul of the man, the dimension of the existence. And once you feed this source, as this is connected to the other souls, who will feed them the same. Man shall not kill, because now man knows, understand the process. So, in fact, there is no difference between your maglev system and your star formation system. You want to stack it, or you want to move it. Static and dynamic. Once man understands this technology, once man understands the work of this technology, you will be moving these from this to this to bring dimension of physicality. The soul of the man, the soul of physicality of the man, and then the physicality of man. And then if you change it, you'll have the physicality in the other way, and you see the man as energy. Then, many of you should understand why you have not managed to achieve such a position and dimension. Because you never understood the process and the principle of creation. Do I want to be in the dimension of physical, or do I want to be in the dimension of motion and travel the span of the universe? In the future, I'll teach you how to combine these to create a dimension of the what I call emotion. That then it brings you a dimension of realization, attachment and detachment from every dimension of the life in the universe. We go for a break and we come back and try to answer some of your questions. But if you understood the teaching of this morning in the full essence of it, you have found your pathway to your own creator and the creation of the whole structure of the universe and the universe. And if you tackle the last point, you find yourself within the structure of the creation, which is the creator. Rick, take us for a break when we come back.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keshe. I think we're all going to have to review that teaching several times to extract as much as we can out of it. That's a lot there. Thank you. Okay, we will take a short break here and be back with the second half. And because it's the second half, you'll, as attendees in our Zoom webinar, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Keshe, and you can raise your virtual hand for us to acknowledge you. And also you can put questions in the Q&A or the chat, and we will address them. Okay. Be back shortly.
In your home. Water is the foundation of our life. It is part of every living creature. Pure water gives you the energy of nature. Now you can have this energy in your home. The Keshe Foundation Alkalizer and Energizer is designed for your daily well-being. It increases the pH of the water so your body can absorb more oxygen and stay in its natural condition during the day. Keshe Foundation Alkalizer and Energizer. Be pure like the water.
Hey, we are back again at the 566th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, November 28th, 2024. Whoops, I've got a thing playing in the background here that shouldn't be. There we go. Okay. Now I'm back.
Goodbye.
Hi, Mr. Keshe. Would you like to have some announcements or other things you'd like to discuss before we get into our questions?
Not really today. It's just the structure which we set up is moving along, and we hopefully will have some news for knowledge seekers in the next few weeks on the progress of our work. But we have to be very careful. As I said, the past couple of weeks I gave too much information in teachings, and some of our governments were not happy that we release information in this way. So I have to be prudent that what we release till it's done, and so we keep very quiet about it. On the other hand, in the next week or so, Keshe Foundation will release another cycle of new answers for a specific application, and with this will come a lot of new understanding, new emotions. A lot of knowledge seekers write to us, can I use one gas in conjunction with the other? As long as they don't interfere, yes. Because you do that in your normal life. You do many things. You do listening, you listen, you eat, you walk, and this gases, use of gases has to become that normal life for you. It's just learn how to use it, when to use it, that it gives you the maximum outcome and what it needs to be done. The new cycle of gases is, they'll bring a new dimension to the work of the Keshe Foundation, and we have opened the Keshe Foundation channel in a different way that you might see new knowledge seekers and new groups of knowledge seekers, which we have to be fully aware of their new approach, understanding, as they are totally what we call connected to the physical dimension and not understanding the technology. If there are any questions to answer.
Okay, let's see. There was a question earlier. Can't seem to find that one I'm thinking of. Freed has a question in YouTube. Says, does the maggrav need to be connected to electricity, or can a maggrav be standalone already now? If the maggrav is not made correctly, does it still work?
Not really. You have to understand the essence of maggrav, not just making it that they'll do something. This is what I always said. Go in the dimension of energy, not a physical structure. And this is the essence of understanding the work of it. Any other question?
I have a question. Does a correctly built maggrav require a period of time to build up its energies, or is it sort of plug
No,
and play?
plug and play.
Okay.
It's a plug and play. It's just that you have to understand the process. You have to understand the effect of. As I said, knowledge seekers for past years treated the maggrav the wrong way. So That's why, in so many ways, everything came to a halt with them.
Can you give us a few more clues as to a direction that we can look
Look
forward
at the
for a correct maggraph?
look at the structure of the universe. Look at the way fields in the universe operate with each other and how they interact. One of the best examples of, if you ever manage to make a maggraph which is completely on its energy side and you can bring it back to its physical side, is when you build a maggraph, it floats. It'll never sit on the table. Couple of knowledge seekers, by accident in past few years, have managed to do it. One knowledge seeker, even if I remember correctly, once said that I pick it up but has no weight. But it sits on the table. Knowledge seekers overall have not understood the principle. And that's where we hit the problem. Any other question?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keshe. We have a question or two or three here from George in the Q&A. George says, hello, Mr. Keshe. I have the following questions from your last two teachings. One, how should the nano-coated part of the CO2 reactor for replenishing with amino acid the pain pan be made? Caustic or fire?
All depends on you.
Are you a caustic person or a fiery person?
I never tested fire.
For the pain
In a
pans?
way, I never use nano-coated materials in paint. Even the original paint pens are the production went with some putting coils in them, which we took it out. Then paint pens of today carry no coil whatsoever. I think if I remember correctly, the coil system came from the Philippine groups at that time. Any other question? What's the next question?
Those were part of the times of the contradictions between clockwise and counterclockwise.
Why is it?
We don't want to get into that.
No.
Another question from George. How do you create more energy in the middle so that the brain and heart cannot handle it and you have stroke or heart attack? What are the ways to deplete that energy so that none of those failures happen?
I developed a technique, actually not a technique, I developed a system years ago for this. you can create an environment that if you feel you're in that position, you bring a change. Actually, it's always coincidental and accidental when people put things through what comes up. Part of the materials we put in, as I said, is coming up soon, is to do with this kind of operation. Gases for what we call use of gases for a stroke, use of gases for operation of the what we call kidneys. These all be done in a different way. What happened when you get a flu? It's understanding of the science. You see me, you most probably not see me, but you hear me, I've got a blocked nose. I caught a very bad flu 3-4 days ago, to a point that it was impossible to even breathe. And by developing very rapidly a mixture of gases and conditions, within 5 minutes, everything disappeared. The guitar and everything. But the damage which was done because of the physical structure of the virus affected my voice and my nose. In the minute I changed condition, it disappeared, but the damage in the voice is there, as most of you can hear. I don't use things immediately because I want to see if the technology is right. I'm a guinea pig of myself. But you have, even with the people which get the, what do you call it, water in the chest, you can create a condition that there is no water immediately. But this takes us to another dimension of science and technology. The amount of what I call guitar along all the way to my lung was so heavy, and I was told, why don't you do something about it? I said, I have to wait till it grows fully, that I can test this correct. Even though I tested 3, 4, or 5 years ago, and it works. Within minutes, the whole structure changes. And it doesn't come by gases, CO2 and the rest. You can do whatever you like. You'll never get that result. But then we feed this into part of the process. And things like heart attack, now we're testing a very effective way for cancer. The specific technology developed that you take this past few weeks, this has come, you take a specific way, a specific material in a very specific direction that the body does not allow the process of the tumor. And once we are satisfied with it, we bring it out. It's just again changing the physical dimension, but understanding how. And if it's successful, the way what we see, yes, it has to be done. The heart attack. Actually, I did the first test in 2008, 2009 maybe. People on the verge of heart attack, total. You just put the system in, and the system takes the energy. And you build a structure in the brain that if any damage is done, it will repair itself. I did that with fluorescence. And the way he was my first guinea pig, within a few days, I remember when I took him out of the hospital, his hand was twisted and I had to feed him on the restaurant table. In a couple of weeks, he was back to normal. It's a system, it's a technology, and you can do this, but now we're getting into a phase that hopefully will make announcements with the structure of these things very soon. Very soon. We have to keep quiet, as I've been told by our, what we call, associates. Do not talk till it's done. You will see very huge changes in that direction, damage. Any other question?
Okay, George's third and last question was about magnesium GANs. What is the best way to obtain it? From nano-coated magnesium with raw magnesium rod, or nano-coated copper and raw magnesium rod, or in magnesium salt? If a magrab is to be sprayed only with magnesium GANs and have magnesium GANs balls inside, would it balance plasma faster than as compared to magnesium GANs bottles placed in the house?
You have to go with the bottles, forget about coming up with anything else, because then you create new dimensions and variations. This is to bring stability, is not to create more mayhem. You have set dimension and it does the work. We know it does. It's been tested many, many, many times. The normal way, just choose your GANs as a GANs of it and use it that way.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here. I don't see any hands up with our attendees. We did have a question from Gail, who's not here right now, unfortunately, but she, at the plasma reactor group yesterday, she came up with a basic question about does the creator use knowledge and technology, or is that something that's for entities such as humans that might be below below level of creator?
The problem is the knowledge comes from interaction of the fields. I always say even the God is surprised by the things which man does, the knowledge he accesses to. But in a way it comes from that, or emotion, or intellect, or whatever. But you don't need to create anything to have that. Knowledge is the field. Creation is material, is conversion to. And I think the creator knows both how to do. Any other question?
Okay, let me see here. George had mentioned in the chat the anti-nuclear disaster teachings is good to be reminded of these days. Thank you.
The process is, I think, if one of the knowledge seekers goes to the session, we thought what to do and bring it up as one of the intros for next week, it'll be perfect. If it can be done. We have to understand that for those of you who are not part of Europe and Middle East. This is irrelevant, but for those of you who are in Europe, especially Western Europe, Eastern Europe, it's a topic of discussion. And as what we know, with the same with the Middle East, even though the, what do you call it, peace agreement was signed yesterday, this is just to give a breathing time for the Israelis to get weapons in and receive the nuclear armament. So Middle East is on the same course. There's a lot of political and strategical moves which pushes it. Russians are telling us they're going to use it, but the procedure stays the same: how to decontaminate. Decontaminating the environment, decontaminating the air, decontaminating the, what they call food, decontaminating your own body if you're exposed to it. Each one is a slightly different process, but has to be done. As I explained to some knowledge seekers very recently, in the process of the nuclear, if you're in the wind of it, what happened in Chernobyl in 1986, fit your windows, fit your doors, fit your what we call air ducts, if you restrict everything with the cloth, with literally dried or contains or wet with gases that as air goes through, it filters itself. And try to keep it always moist. That's very essential. Try to keep port of entries, like the doors, the windows, and the air ducts, whichever you have, continuously wet with gas material. Any gas material, because it's an energy absorbing. You don't get any what we call materials coming. It's the energy fields which come in and they get trapped, or even as a dust, they'll get trapped. In the same thing with your water contamination. You create, if you have any dry gases, if you don't, you make layers, like not tissue, but the cloth of different gases, and you behave exactly like the way you do water filtering. Instead of putting a coil sand or the coal sand and everything else, you make layers of gases, or you pour water in gas water, or in the bottle which has gases in it, and you just consume the top water. First of all, it gives you gas water. Secondly, as it absorbs all the energy within the gas, you receive more or less pure water. The other matter for you is if you do the same with your washing material, with a bath or with a shower, you continuously keep that in mind. You create a barrier that any water you use goes through. You make a bath, you make a, what you call a tub, or you make a bowl of the gases like copper, zinc, with what you call, even with iron. You mix these gases in a bowl and you let it settle. You have a fruit or you have food which you think is contaminated. Just put it in there. Don't let the gas touch. Take the water, leave the food in this gas water for a few minutes. It's fully decontaminated. Because it's energy, has no identity. Even if it's particles landed on it in the water, it'll be absorbed, it'll be taken out. we are in a very serious danger. As I said, we are on the top. We passed 1159, but still there is a hope. We know Israel is definitely going to use 3 nuclear warheads on Iran. We are fully aware of it, as Biden has taken a payment for it to his private account. And we'll see the next step. But essentially, try, if you are in a contaminated area, try to make ganses on a continuous basis, because the energy fields are safe for a long time. Wash your car on the air filter of the car, put the same cloth with gans, not the powder, but always wet to keep it well moist. If you're traveling, you're cleaning the material, spray outside the house. If you have the opportunity, or you can do a spraying in the house. It's dimensions we don't know, but we cannot create, what do you call it, panic. But it can happen. Don't look at it as a nuclear bomb, but happened in Chernobyl. Nuclear power stations go rogue. It's something we have to know how to do, how to handle it. And if you are in the area and you are contaminated, or you are in that position of contamination, then you have access to what they call communication bundles. We look after you from inside. We feed you from inside. If you have the worries about contamination, all you need, you have to reach us, that we get the message, and we connect your system to a system to bring that condition in. These are one of the applications of the cosmic bundles, which we put. It has a lot of application. This more or less we create a direct line through no wires, no telephones. The way we can feed you, we can look after you till things settle. But this is now a reality in the Western world, in Europe and Middle East. We're dealing with it. It's every day on the news. Russian threatened, and the other ones are ready, and the other ones don't like, and every other thing which goes with it. Keep any gases except aluminum and lead in the house, and always keep a bottle in reserve. If it happens, we are now in a world of nuclear. You cannot avoid it, and anything can go wrong. Somebody hits somebody's nuclear base, somebody hits nuclear weapon, and the rest of it, and somebody does something else. Even pollutions, with chemical pollutions, you can still use gases. Any other question?
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. We have a couple more questions here. And from Elizabeth, who says, thank you for all the love and knowledge you give us. What happens to the soul when a person suffers from somnambulism? Which is, I believe that's sleepwalking, right?
That's a physical dimension. Nothing happens. The soul is still there. The body moves around. That's the time when the soul of physicality takes over the physical body. Not much to do with the soul. Soul is still there. Most probably laughing. Look at him. But
Carried along for the ride.
Yeah, I've seen it happening. I've seen it. I've seen having to children at a high temperature. It's nothing to do with each other. That's the position of the soul. But the soul of physicality is separately with the body. That's a mechanical system.
Okay. I had a question from Jefferson from Brazil. He says, "Thank you very much for your presence among us. A year and a half ago, I reported to you that I had a heart problem, and you told me the possible causes. I was living with this problem until recently, when I decided to buy a car and install a magrev in it. I assembled the magrev with the coils in a triangular star configuration, connected the gravitational terminal to the battery's positive terminal and the magnetic terminal to 4 points on the car's chassis close to the wheels. I have felt an incredible improvement in the functioning of my cardiac system. It's as if the problem no longer exists. My question is about the arrangement of the magrev coils. Does the configuration of the star-forming coils affect the overall effect of the magrev? Thank you very much."
These are fields, doesn't matter how you put them, they interact. It's irrelevant as long as you create the fields in them or within them and interaction with others. Doesn't matter what configuration you put. Maybe you find a configuration which gives you better fuel consumption or better emotion, or you have to change it from one to another to have the benefit of one and less benefit of the other. But in essence, you're dealing with the field. So you have to decide how you compress that field or how you leave it open. People who've been using the car magrev system, they talk about change of emotion. A lot of them. A lot. And even if the pain is there, the emotion of it before was pulling them down. Now they don't even just stay there. They live their normal life. It is it's understanding the fields and not the physicality. And this is one of the beautiful things about it. You change the environment. Any other?
I have kind of a nice story that I'd like to relay here with our new knowledge seeker, Dankin, who was in a knowledge seekers workshop a couple of workshops ago and was requesting help with his GANs making situation. And he was in Africa, in a poor area of Africa, and needed some help, and he was trying to find someone that could help him at that time. And you suggested, excuse me, you suggested he talk to Dr. Gatua, and that's exactly what he did. He traveled 400 kilometers across the some pretty tenuous roads, apparently, to Nairobi in Kenya to visit with Dr. Gachwa for a full week to do training in the GANs technology. And here's a picture of one of his pictures that he sent to me, and he's a pretty happy character right there when he's learning about the GANs technology and picking up some nanomaterial, or picking up some materials to make nanomaterials and to make the GANSs and so on. And he spent a full week and learned a lot. And it's kind of a success story, I think. I think he's a enthusiastic new knowledge seeker that perhaps will go on to be, maybe someone like Alex or someone that's, involved in the plasma technology. At least that's what I'm hoping.
That's nice. And we got to realize we, in Africa, you see a lot of things new, but getting hold of materials is extremely difficult.
We discussed this in the Keshe Plasma Reactor group yesterday because Gail is from South Africa. And like we were saying, well, can you get some, copper wire or whatever, some zinc in particular? And there's nothing around. If it was around, they would have already taken it and sold it. It's that
There's
bad.
a shortage of material, because I remember we did some test with Sierra Leonean universities, and we were trying to make some gases, and it became such a job finding. I said, you have the wires, you have the batteries, it's impossible to get. And we had so much problem getting materials in, what do you call it, Freetown University, to start the process. Even in Gambia and in Ghana, finding materials, raw materials especially, is horrendous in what you want to do with it. But they have to learn. There are two ways in Africa. There is always, wherever you go, there are cables, wire cables, electricity cables, wires, everywhere. There is nowhere in the world you don't find it. And most of the places, there is a chicken mesh. It's part of life in Africa. They have to get adopted that they don't need plates. They can convert into coils or wires to do the same. And more or less, these are the things they can do. Any other question?
A couple more, and then we probably should let you go. I know you're suffering from this, your voice.
It's just a block noise there. Not much you can do. Thank you. Yes.
From ABC Plasmy in the YouTube, it says in the 177th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, you remember that one, of course?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You spoke of a doorway to the spaceship. This is created by a field blockage. Is this the same as the blockage over the Tel Aviv from the star formation? Or maybe you don't want to speak about that.
I have to stay out of commenting on Middle East. I've been categorically been told do not comment. But I put it to you in a different way, but very diplomatically. When you bark too much, but you have nothing in your video, sooner or later people will find out your barking is shallow or hollow. And Israel talked about a lot about Iron Dome, and when it got tested, because they put certain things in certain positions, when it got tested, it failed. It does not exist. And very interesting, even I was reading a report this morning from securities. The Israelis said yesterday, in the last hours of prior to ceasefire or whatever, they fired, let's say, 10 rockets. 9 of them were destroyed and 1 landed in a empty land. And very interesting, which is not known in public, we hear about a lot about 44,000 Palestinians who killed and numerous numbers who got injured. And we have listened into this past months that Israelis have got 99% of all the missiles, everything blocked, and every time they did something ended up in the empty land. If you listen, this has been a pattern of the report from Israel and the security. But there's one thing which is known to the military world and to the outside, trying to keep it quiet. Nearly 7,000 Israelis have died in this war. over 12 to 14,000 Israelis are in hospital from shrapnel wound and the rest. The question comes, what happened to the Iron Dome? You cannot, if you have a heart attack today, there is no room anywhere in Tel Aviv, in Israel for you, because it's all occupied by military injuries and civilian injuries from the war. So when you speak about the Israeli Iron Dome, it's iron lies than actually a dome. It does not exist. What is more, another point, is that Israel used to be nearly 5 million Jews and nearly 4.5, 5 million Palestinians. That 9 million was the estimated numbers. 2 million Jews have left Israel since last October. Literally disappeared back into Europe and the rest. And so at the moment, 25% of a nation are running a nation, which are the Israelis. But all of these people who get injured with these missiles and the rest are Palestinians. So they're losing both ends, and Iron Dome doesn't work. And this is a block policy that 99% captured, destroyed, and 1% always lands in the open land. But these open lands might have something that 7,000 people have got killed on it. And maybe the truth is 1% of the missiles have been intercepted, 99% landed. And this brings a lot of controversy. In a time to come, the total, what we call losses on the Israeli side, will be known. Experts and the people who have the statistic in Israel speak between 5,000 to 7,000 dead in Israel. These are the experts. But officially, because of the gagging order, nobody can report. But people tell you there is no room anywhere in Israel you can find if you had a heart attack to get yourself into to survive. And they had nothing, and nobody has touched, nobody has happened. They only lost a few soldiers and the rest of it. So we have to look at this situation with Israel with a pinch of salt. And this 60-day gap they created is actually, if the Hamas would have pushed another 2 weeks, Israelis had no bullets and no guns. They're running out of ammunition. America forced this to be able to replenish, what do you call it? Replenish the arms, because they were under such a heavy attack, and they spread themselves in all directions. And now you have to understand the reserves of the Israeli army. They don't want to fight anymore. You're by law allowed to be part of the army for 1 month a year, doesn't matter man or woman, within a given age. And some of these soldiers are on duty for 6-8 months, self-employed. They lost their jobs, they lost their businesses. And there's a huge problem which, by gagging orders of the Mr. Netanyahu, has kept from the truth. The truth will come out, it will be seen. But when you hear about this Iron Dome about Israel, it's all fake. Just be careful, call a hospital, says I have a heart attack, I'm about to come in, they say we have no room. And so you got to understand, we live in North Korea, and at the moment living in North Korea and in Israel is exactly the same. Censorship, government just tells you what they want to hear. And this peace agreement is a lot of attachment to it, which is to, in a way, to get arms as much as you can. It's on the internet and published in different ways of how they're literally controlling media. But it's nearly 1 to 5, 1 to 6, and if every missile has been intercepted, Why do we have over 800,000 officially Israeli soldiers dead? Unofficially, which is the reality, some sources speak up to 10,000 Israeli losses, where there's everything Palestinians, Hezbollah, whatever, shot at them in landed in the open field. And we want to understand how these two nations got to this point to do this to each other. And this 60 days gap was forced by Americans because they can't get weapons into Israel. Israel would have lost the war. Very badly, as we've seen, especially in the last 2 or 3 weeks. The military camps, one after another, flattened, literally flattened. And these military camps are not empty, it's full of soldiers, and you can estimate what happens. So, it's a peace just to recuperate, and is peace to what we call get more arms in somewhere Mr. Biden and his family collects more commission from the arm factories. You got to understand that when you send a missile from Lockheed Martin to go to anywhere, wages has to be paid. Light and heating has to be paid. Lockheed Martin issues an invoice to the parliament or to the Senate or to the government. There's a 10%, 20% commission on that invoice, which goes to those who created the war, and America pays for it. Then they collect it from Vatican. When you need 1,000 or 2 billion war equipment going, these are made by people, wages. Some of you may be listening, working in some of these, or know people in this. None of the Lockheed Martin staff are dying of hunger. Actually, they're doing overtime. Their life is very good because they have to produce more missiles. So it's an invoice issued. $60,000, $100,000 per missile. And has to be paid. Otherwise, Lockheed Martin cannot pay his wages. There will be no missile tomorrow. And apparently, from the security information coming in, people in the areas where weapons are made are having a wonderful time. People dying in Palestine, and Americans are on Thanksgiving Day. They couldn't afford a chicken last year. This year is a turkey because overtime making missiles has paid off. But this bill has to be paid. Otherwise, that turkey won't be on the table. And somebody who signs these bills takes 10, 15% commission. And this is why they push the war. It's for their bank accounts, not for freeing another nation.
That, of course, is happening in Ukraine as well. Mr. Biden, I won't call him president anymore, has declared that the conscription age, that Zelensky must make the conscription age down from 26 years old to 18 years old.
Yeah, so because it's the Ukrainians who are dying, nobody else. Yeah. It's the Ukrainians who are losing their job. The thing is, the life is still going on. It's a part of Keshe Foundation. You know, this black box we've been looking for to make for your, what do you call it, cosmic ray material, is produced in Ukraine. And see, we pay the Ukrainian manufacturer to produce it. We source everywhere around the world. We have beautiful knowledge seekers in Ukraine. But how many of them are alive? How many of them are alive who we saw in different conferences? Because they're active, they used to come everywhere. But Germany is bringing the conscription back. Britain is trying to bring it back. And getting ready for a war. For what reason, nobody knows. But would Trump come to an agreement with Putin? And what will be the outcome and the consequences? The part which the Russians have taken is the part which was heavily invested by Russia during the communist time. And the part which the Russians have taken is nearly 20% of the land. If Ukrainians and Americans and the rest were also successful, how come 20% of the landmass has gone to Russia? If you listen to one of the interviews with Putin recently, he gives you a position where 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers are back to a lake and another 5,000 to a mountain. They can't go anywhere. But it says we can't shoot them down. These are our own people. We have to keep them there. They can't do any damage. And they keep on making pontoons trying to cross the lake to escape on the other side. We keep on shooting the pontoons down. Listen to one of those recent interviews. And so it's not that they're all killing each other. If you're on the line, you go that way. And now we hear in recent past days and weeks, they're finding a lot of British mercenaries in Ukraine. They find their bodies with documents. It's become a war where, what do you call it? The president of Ukraine has banked about 9+ billion in his private account, as it's been. Now is coming up, and he's start asking from several European countries for asylum. He's ready to go. He knows it cannot be done. We hear Parliament of Ukraine this week has been told not to attend anything because, and they told not to attend. They were told to take your family and leave the capital. The 8th of December. So they don't even know what it is. There's a lot of barking going on, but it's not good for the people who are in it. It's horrendous for people who are in it. It's the same, doesn't matter if the soldier is Ukrainian, Israeli, Palestinian, Hezbollah, Iranian, Chinese, whatever. There still is life. Somebody's son and somebody's father. And this is the problem. This is the problem. We have to wait and see. Let's see if the new policy comes in with the new government, does what it says. Because if Trump doesn't follow the pattern that these people make their monies in the Lockheed Martin and the rest of it, and the big corporations make a lot of money from whatever is to come after, there's going to be a big problem for Trump. He wants to stop putting outside, but inside needs to be done. What are you going to do with all these workers, nearly 1.5 million in military armed recruitment? Find a job. He promised that they'll keep the car industry in America going, which we doubt now more and more. We never promised he'll keep the military. He says he's going to train military. And this war games they create to show somebody is bad, they have to use weapons, is going to come to an end. But he has to find 1.5 million jobs. These people need to be fed. These people need to be looked after, highly specialized. What would they do? Most of these weapon people, they get out of job. They're food for the cat. Chinese, Russians, Arab nations will employ for nothing to take the technology to their country. Export of the what they call the brain is more important than export of what they call physical equipment. This is part of the problem which Trump hasn't actually calculated it. Stopping the wars the way it's structured, he wants to stop the wars, but the factories need to be supplied. The guy needs another turkey for next year on the, what they call it, Thanksgiving Day. And if it's not there, he becomes scientific mercenary, and Arab countries and other countries, North Korea, will pay good wages for them to go there. He won't stop. And they have the expertise because they made more and more of it. This is part of this equation and part of the lines which the Israelis have brought into the game. I said to a diplomat in the past few days, what happened to the 7,000 dead, which is reported, and statistically it's correct. He said, we cannot talk about it. And this is the problem. It's not 44,000 Palestinians or Arabs. is more or less 54,000 human beings. Because, taking with a pinch of salt, those who couldn't get to the hospital because of the heart attack, people who couldn't have the cancer treatment, they all died too. So add another 3,000-4,000 on that into the equation, then you see is 50,000 families suffering. With somebody having turkey today is a Thanksgiving day. We did overtime, we made more missiles to kill. It's a very complicated situation. And diplomacy does not come into it. Rothschild and Illuminatis and Vatican comes into it. Anyway, it's a very delicate subject to talk
I hope you didn't overstep your bounds there. Thank you for all the additional knowledge.
No, it's, you see, Keshe Foundation is we work in a different way. That, especially after 3 or 4 attempts on my life, we have set up a security structure, and that security structure informs us about 120 different countries, how they move, how they are. And we get the knowledge freely as knowledge. Knowledge seekers are not the ones who come here and sit in the teaching and talk or whatever. The knowledge seekers who gather information for us on a continuous basis or inform us on important sessions are there 24 hours a day. They've been there 10, 15 years. We have much more deeper intelligence than most probably some of the nations do on certain topics. Because it's knowledge seekers. They come direct. I've explained that before when we used to be in the Sensano. One of the top managements of the most advanced, biggest gun factory in Europe in the world since the Second World War, he just came for a coffee. He said, Mr. Keshe, Pope came in and placed the order for largest number of guns ever. What is going to happen? I said to him, what do you mean? He said, we just received the biggest order for producing guns in Italy paid by the father came himself to pay for it. Does the church buy guns? Or do the, what we call Swiss boys, need a lot of guns to defend the Vatican if anything goes wrong? Now you understand. The people who bring us knowledge and information are people who are truly knowledge seekers, and they work on a peace, not on wars, and they give information to us freely on those bases. We never ask questions. When I tell you we have over 100 million plus knowledge seekers, they're not all in point of power. It's all of you plus them, plus people who sit. And when it matters, to speak. Anyway, let's see what happens and what the world brings. Thank you very much for today. And we call it a day. And hopefully we meet next time, same place. Thank you very much, Rick.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Keshe. Thank you. Well, another amazing workshop. Thank you, everybody, for being here today for the 566th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, November 28th, 2024. And this will be our last public workshop in November. And just looking at the calendar, and it will be December 3rd for the next workshop, which will be the One Planet, One Nation, One Race for Justice and World Peace, with members of the Universal Council and support members. And that starts at the 4 p.m. Central European Time with the same Zoom channel. Some people apparently have had trouble getting, getting into the I think I'm getting your throat problem, Mr. Keshe. Getting into the Zoom today, there's an issue with the update of the Zoom. You have to have the update in order to get into Zoom, but you go to get the update and the update is not ready yet in some countries, apparently. So continue trying to update your Zoom and it should go through in the next day or two or get you straightened out that way. All right. I think that's it for now. Again, thank you everybody for attending. And Jalal just put his hand up, but I think it might be too late, Jalal. Is it too late for Jalal, Mr. Keshe? Are you still there? I'll allow you to talk, Jalal. Just go ahead if you want there, but I don't think you'll be talking to Mr. Keshe.
No, it's about, hi Rick, hi everyone. It's about the student account. Since yesterday's, a lot of things has changed. So Mr. Keshe or anyone and the admin knows about this and the education
I think
side.
the main issues with the update of Zoom, I think, because people couldn't get into Zoom because they needed the update and they couldn't get the update, so they couldn't get into Zoom to start the meetings and whatnot. There is a new number apparently as well, so between that and the Zoom update, there's probably some confusion.
Okay.
I don't know.
We will try. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, unless someone else has some info on that. All right, I think we'll call it a night here, or a day, or whichever. All right, again, thank you everybody for attending today's workshop, and big thanks to Mr. Keshe, of course, for being our main presenter and teacher once again. Okay, we'll go out with our Universal Flight Enhancement Spaceship Unit, and may you all have a good journey. Bye for now.